Good morning. I'm Gloria Bramel Chinubu. I represent House District 60, which is portions of Clayton County, DeKalb County, Fulton County, and the City of Atlanta. So you can see that I'm in the middle of all of this. Senator Ford, thank you for this document. This completes my research. Then with the election of Perdue and Kathy Cox as superintendent, and then later the changing of what we know as SACS from SACS as we knew it back in pre-2004 to the SACS that we know today, which goes by the other name, Advance Ed. So in 2002, Perdue is elected. 2004, Mark Elgart becomes the new CEO of SACS. And SACS now becomes SACS-CASI, which is the secondary school accrediting entity. And it launches this new accreditation piece, which they call this new generation of accreditation. And they, in 2004, accredited Fulton County as their first district-wide accrediting entity. And so once they had, I guess, their favorite entity in place, already accredited, then they started gaining more power. SACS merged with the North Central Association, which included additional 19 states. The Southern Association had 11 states. The North Central Association covers 19 states, which now amounts to 30 states. And that's when, in 2006, they really began to pull their power together, but their power really didn't coalesce until 2008, when they began to have regional and national focus in terms of their accreditation. And they started in on Clayton County as their first test case. So Clayton County was a test case of their power, of their newfound power, because by this time, SACS was no longer being watched over by the colleges division. They were a separate entity. They are no longer associated with the Commission on College because that section is headed up by Belle Whelan out of Decatur. That's a totally separate entity. That's the regional accrediting body that is recognized by the U.S. Department of Education. SACS is not a regional. The new SACS, Advanced Ed, is no longer a regionally recognized accrediting body. It has accrediting power in not only these two regions that I told you about, the Southern and the North Central, but they also can accredit nationally and internationally. So SACS is really a multinational corporation. So it fits in real well with what Senator Ford said, the Chamber of Commerce. And so in fact, they acquired the only oversight entity called CEDAR that had any kind of oversight over them. They have since acquired that entity. So there's no one overseeing Advanced Ed / SACS. This term that I call the unholy trinity that we're going to go after. It includes Advanced Ed / SACS, the new SACS, state constitutional officers, elected officials who have partnered with them, and the Chamber of Commerce, both the Metro and the Georgia Chamber of Commerce. Those are the three major corporations represented by the Chamber of Commerce, certain state constitutional officers who are a party to this collusion that I call it, and Advanced Ed SACS. Thank you.
All right, we'll take questions. If any questions? Yes, sir.
On DeKalb County.
Mm-hmm.
I asked the governor when he signed the bill whether there was anything he could do because it was the bill that included Atlanta and its immediate crisis and DeKalb County. He said, well, no, he couldn't veto a section of the bill, so basically whatever he thought about DeKalb County didn't matter because of the immediate crisis in Atlanta. And have you reached out to the governor's office or talked to them about trying to somehow do something in the next session about it?
I'll let the DeKalb members answer that question. The only thing I will say is the governor has made a lot of assertions about this. He even asserted that he didn't want the power to remove board members. and that did not prevent him from going along with the bill. He could have said stop at any point in time. He did not say that. So I'm sure that's his assertion. Whether or not, in fact, the question then is, would he have signed the DeKalb County bill if it didn't have the Atlanta stuff in it? I believe he would have, but that's neither here nor there. We are where we are now, and the bill, he has signed the bill, even though he didn't want the power. He signed the bill. So I'll let somebody from DeKalb speak to that point.
And that's exactly what we heard from House leadership as well. We did everything in our power to remove DeKalb County out of this particular piece of legislation. We didn't feel that, based on the fact that we were going through redistricting and based on Senate Bill 84, that this particular section in the bill actually had no relevance. Also, if you're going to change DeKalb from 9 to 7, because that's the best thing to do, with the Atlanta School Board being 9, how come that was not addressed in the bill as well? So those kind of things didn't make any sense to us, and we haven't gotten any good answers from House leadership or the governor's office on that.
In addition to what our chair just said, as you all recall, there was an amendment on the floor to take out that section. And the speaker ruled that it was untimely because it wasn't done before that hour. In addition, the way I understand the statutory power of the governor, not only is it line item veto, that if that section was taken out, it would not change the remainder of that bill. So I believe that was within the power of the governor to remove a section. That's my understanding of what line item veto, not just in budgets, but in portions of the bills, because you can. Not just in the budget, but if there's a portion of the bill that is deemed inappropriate, unconstitutional, I believe the statutory power given to the governor is to remove a section. And it says if part of it is removed, the remainder of that bill stays intact. So I don't want us to forget that. I also would like to say that a number of us went to the well and said put that on hold because it was put in the committee process within 1 day before it went on the floor. So it should never have been merged into a bill that was already pre-existing in opposition to 16 members out of 19, considering that there are a number of school districts that are already at 9, considering the genesis at Senate Bill 84 that said if you draw any line, it has to go to 7. The question was, why now, and how do you do that over the objection of the local delegation?
And in addition, there was a Savannah. This was a catch-all intrusion in the local politics. It was a catch-all. I mean, Governor Deal and the Republican Party asserts at every opportunity that they believe in local control. Well, they believe in local control when it's convenient. But when it comes to Savannah, when it comes to DeKalb, and most certainly when it comes to Atlanta, local control is an afterthought. As opposed, when it comes to the voting rights of people in my district, local control is an afterthought. So, we can run around the barn talking about, well, if DeKalb, if not Savannah, but the fact of the matter is he signed it. It's a bad bill. It's wrong, and we're going to fight it as long as we can. Representative Tanubu, you wanted to respond?
Just one quick comment about board size. There was this report that was done by this entity that was created through State Board of Education resolution to study school board governance. And they never provided evidence of any kind that there was any correlation between the size of school boards and student achievement. There's no such research. And they didn't provide any correlation, anything to that effect. So that's important to note, that this whole bandwagon about the size of the school board is just a creation. There's nothing real about it.
When does Senate Bill 79 indicate that DeKalb will go from 9 to 7? When will that actually take effect based on the bill?
Representative Stevenson, can you speak to that?
The bill became effective when the governor signed, but July 1st, but your question specifically is when does DeKalb go? And that is what we're saying wasn't really cleared in the pre-clearance because you have to redraw the lines. So every time, in order to get to 7, there has to be a redistricting. And the Department of Justice has already said, we reserve the right to enjoin, and it will take pre-clearance to redraw the lines of the DeKalb County School Board members.
And something else we need to keep in mind, even if at some point in time the Department of Justice was to quote-unquote pre-clear, that does not prevent any one of us or citizens from going to federal court. Pre-clearance is one step in the process. In one of the, I think the takeaways that people ought to consider is this, that in the CRCT situation, the scandal, the culture of cheating and the culture of corruption, people who did the right thing were what? Punished. The people who did the wrong thing were rewarded. And it's throughout this process, Governor Deal and Mayor Reed have both gone after those people on the school board who did the right thing, who asserted their authority to give oversight to the superintendent and the school system. And so that's why in the secret meeting with Governor Deal, the secret meeting that the school board had with Mayor Reed and Governor Deal, we were very concerned with what we heard from people who attended the meeting, that the mayor told folk they needed to resign, and if they didn't resign, the school system wouldn't retain their accreditation. Just absolute, there's no other word to use except bullying. So the point is, we need to make sure that any decisions made in Senate Bill 79 are not political. They're not made by the Chamber of Commerce. They're not made by people who have a vested interest in this situation. So I think the takeaway for citizens is this, is that the people who we should have confidence in to determine who's going to serve is the voters of the city of Atlanta and the voters of the county of DeKalb. No one else. The people who did the deed, the people who did the cover-up should not determine who's going to sit on the Atlanta School Board.